You essentially have created a print-on-demand service, but with the niche of artists that have disabilities.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I didn't think of it like that.
Basically, yeah, no, you captured that really well. Like, people, I'm impressed by how you phrase that, because I think...
Drew, I don't even know your last name, but Drew
McNamara.
Yep. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Our mutual friend is Jordan.
Yep.
Orman Weiss, also known as Live with Dash or Live with Dash.
Yes, Dash. On B96 now.
Killing it on B96. And you were previously telling me pre-recording that you met in your fraternity. Other than that, I don't know much about you, other than what I could muster up on social media of Be Creative Souls.
Yep.
So that being said, if you were to introduce yourself to someone new, how would you eloquently describe your essence? What's like crucial to know about you if you really wanted someone to understand you? Yeah,
so I could take this a lot of ways. I like to say that one of my biggest passions in life in general is working and helping people with disabilities, like working with people with disabilities and helping them. So I'm someone who is, I like to think, empathetic, a family-oriented person, and just I really want to help people while also having fun doing it, and doing something that's creative and unique. So, that's what I
think it's fair to say most people do want to help people. And
Absolutely.
My purpose with the EMT class is to help the students identify the capacity and how they want to help people in this vessel of healthcare, right? Specifically sick people.
Yep.
How did you come to find you wanted to help specifically people with disabilities?
Yeah, so growing up, about in the first grade, I was diagnosed with auditory processing disorder.
Okay.
So what that means basically is that some people can ask me questions, and it might take me a little bit to process and come up with an answer.
Okay.
Also, in terms of like if I'm on a phone call, it could take me a little while to think of an answer.
Here we are on a podcast.
Exactly. But I've worked through it a lot, and it's been a gradual uphill, learning experience working with my disability.
Yeah. At what point did you come to terms or be introduced to that diagnosis? And to be honest, I've never met anyone with that diagnosis. So was it easy to meet other people in the similar shoes, or how was that initial experience?
Yeah. So I think I remember in like the first grade, me being pulled aside to be with my mom, my dad, and I think a couple teachers and like a case manager. And this was in like elementary school.
Okay.
In that moment, like, I don't think I had any clue what was going on. I just knew I was getting pulled away from class, and I'm like, yes, let's go. Like, I was happy about it. I don't think I truly realized that I had like a disability until a few years later, maybe. Like, I knew I was getting extra time in those classes.
Okay.
I was getting pulled for like an hour each day to be with a speech therapist, and work through that. And I did that from like first grade to, I would say, my junior year of high school. So I had an IEP, and basically that's a individualized, I could be butchering this right now, but it's like a individualized education plan, I believe.
That sounds right.
Yeah, and basically it's to provide support to
Sure.
people in the schools. And so it could look like having extra time. It might be working with a speech therapist.
So they're like your advocate.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, more or less. So I had that growing up until end of junior year of high school.
And why did it end there?
Actually, end of sophomore year.
Oh.
Basically, they said that I've kind of grew out of my learning disability. And at that point, I didn't need any more support.
Did you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think I was ready. Like, I think you never really grow out of your learning disability. You kind of learn how to work with it. And so I think it's been years and years of working through it. And even today, like, I'm still learning new things about myself. I was 2 years ago, I was recently diagnosed with ADHD. And auditory processing disorder and ADHD actually go often hand in hand with each other, which I didn't know about up until recently.
Sure.
Like I've been doing a little bit more research and trying to understand like why I am the way I am and about certain things. So, yeah.
So beyond junior year of high school, or even within junior year of high school, did you continue? So you didn't have the support system, but did you continue to receive accommodations?
No. I actually, it went from getting extra time on tests and everything to just like basically no.
And then that continued into college?
Yeah.
No accommodations.
No accommodations.
And we're all, we periodically get asked for accommodations, specifically in the EMT class, and we're more than willing to, within reason, give those accommodations. But there is a part of me that's like, I'm curious if this person would actually make it with a real patient in real life.
Yeah.
So have you ever come across, I'm sure you have, in real life, like where it just like an example of like where life just doesn't seem fair and like, but also coming to terms with like no one will really give you a handout?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think trying to think through like what, if I have had any experience like that. I mean, I definitely have. I think I've had more of that experiences with like at work, more in like a employment setting where, things aren't always easy for me. Like I take longer to respond to emails. Like it could take someone like 5 minutes to like just quickly send off an email.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is answering your question, but it could take someone else 5 minutes, but it might take me 30 minutes to write that same email. Fortunately, there's now new things like Chat GPT, which has been super helpful for me because I could just say, hey, help me write this, like help me kind of come up with the wording, which doesn't give me the answer right away, but it helps me kind of guide and like paraphrase what I'm trying. Yeah.
Do you find yourself noticing the disability in certain settings more than others? Certain situations?
Yeah. For me, 100%. I think in the workplace setting, like I notice ADHD and my auditory processing disorder come up a lot. Mostly because for me, it takes time for me to think through things.
Yeah.
I also need complete silence when I'm doing work.
Wow.
Like not complete silence, but like I need,
yeah.
if I'm going to be really focusing on things, I thrive on like having my door shut.
Sure.
And like white noise machine on and maybe headphones, potentially listening to music. But I need to like be able to be in my own zone kind of. And so that can be, it could be a challenge. Fortunately, I have, in my full-time job, I have amazing coworkers who also relate heavily, I would say, to what I go through.
I think more people can benefit from taking their time with emails.
100%. I agree. But it's sometimes it's a pain for me. It's like I would love to just fire out some emails and things, but I don't know. And then it could turn into like more anxiety based. Like sometimes then I'm like delaying sending an email or delaying a phone call that I know I need to do.
Have you cultivated ways to ease that anxiety if it comes up?
Yeah, well, I would say Chat GPT has been a lifesaver in terms of that because it's allowed me to kind of not stress about having to like really always think like thoroughly about everything.
What did you do before Chat GPT?
Before that, I would just take my time and just do it. Like I would just have to kind of sit through it.
Do they really need this email right now? Do they really? It's just like, is it really the end of the world?
I would say it's not the end of the world. However, it's for me, it can be, unfortunately, and I don't know how many others with ADHD relate to this, but for me, it could be not just like a day. It could be a little longer to respond. Like I could take anywhere from a day, or it could be, I might wait like a week sometimes, which is obviously not not great. But I think people do have an understanding, and I also think it comes from a place like sometimes work itself is super super busy, and emails unfortunately can be the last thing I'm getting to in the day. So
Which is good.
right,
You're
right.
compartmentalizing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never really thought of ADHD in the sense of like needing to delay a process. I usually think of it, the first thing that comes to mind is being distracted.
Yeah. Which I have, which I
I think we're all guilty of that.
Yeah.
But kudos to you for trying to like separate things, because one can easily check their emails on their phone any time of the day, and for you to delay it until a certain time of the day is, I think, smart.
Yeah.
And efficient.
Yeah. No, I think it definitely can be good. Sometimes I'm like, oh, why am I doing this at the end of the day? I'd rather like, because then I'm like creating some more stress sometimes. But no, I also think I used to start my day with emails, and I realize now it took some time to get to this point, but now I'm like, I won't start my day with emails because it sets me up for like a really long day of like if that's the first thing you're looking at.
Do you compartmentalize things into things that are important and urgent, and then things that are not important, urgent, things that are non-urgent, not important? Like there's a grid for that, right? So like,
yeah, there definitely is. I don't know, sometimes I struggle with that. Prioritizing, like
right.
I can, it's hard for me to like prioritize what is the most important, because I think I think everything's so important. So it can be tough when I want to like do things to perfection.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's really been a learning experience, like trying to navigate all of that, especially, being an employee at a place, like you have to stay on top of things. So it's been a gradual learning experience. And I think as I keep going on in my profession, which full time, I'm a recreation program manager, so I work with individuals with disabilities.
So it's really come full circle.
Yeah, it really has.
What did you do to lead up to that? Like immediately out of school, out of college, what did you study at Urbana, and then all that stuff? Take us back.
So I went to the University of Illinois in Champaign. I studied social work there, and then I stayed for another year to get my master's in social work.
Only one more year?
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you do undergrad at U of I, and this might be similar to other places too for social work, but I know at least at U of I, you could do, your whole undergrad there, and then you can like fast track basically. So I did one more year. I was like, why not stay at school one more year before I have to jump up and, into the real world.
The abyss.
Yeah, basically. So I stayed there and got my master's in social work, and my focus was mental health. But I knew I also wanted to work with people with disabilities.
Can you tell me why mental health?
Yeah. Well, so even though I mental health for me was like the closest to still working with individuals with disabilities in a way. In the School of Social Work, there were a few different branches. There were like, one was education, and I knew I didn't want to really be in a school setting as a social worker. You could be in a hospital. I am not great with blood, anything like that. I'm not good with that, so I knew.
Now that you're working, do you know if they deal with blood?
Overall, they probably don't. But any sight of blood, I'm okay. I'd rather not be in the hospital. So I knew I didn't want to do that. And then there might have been another branch, but mental health was like the closest to what I knew like I could be doing, like in a field where it would bring a lot of expertise from like a knowledge for me to go into like. So I'll back up a bit.
Sure.
Once I graduated, I ended up going to actually do an internship at a place in the suburbs of Chicago, and I worked in a residential setting for youth with disabilities, so pretty much mostly autism, and I worked there, got to see the children's program, art program, and I realized pretty quickly, I was like, okay, like this is a really unique area. the people I was working with were like, in terms of the individuals, residential setting basically means like there's group homes, and these individuals actually live there full time. Like they live there, they do go to school, but they, at the end of the day, they don't go back to like homes, you know, where their parents are. They're going to
Sure.
a group home where there's
Is it
8.
Is it an age thing or a support thing?
Support.
Yeah.
And so the individuals at this place were more intensive in terms of their behaviors. And so working with them it was a different experience that I never knew was out there.
Can you not quickly, but to the best of your ability, share the ends of the autism spectrum, and maybe some of the nuances that maybe surprised you when you started working with this group?
Yeah. So actually, the place I work at right now, currently in my full-time job, I did that throughout college. Like I worked at this place, but as a camp counselor and for individuals. So I was in an inclusion program, like working as a counselor with a kid with a disability.
Okay.
So I did that, and it was always really calm for the most part. I loved it. Then I wanted a different experience. So when I was looking for an internship, I could have gone to the place I work at full time now, but I wanted a different one. So I ended up at the residential setting, and the differences that I've seen are in the intensity of behaviors, the supports that are truly needed for some individuals. I also have seen parents who really have unfortunately had a really tough time at home.
Like they need help.
And they needed help, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas in the place I work at now, it's not like that. Like parents there are group homes, but it's, in terms of intensity, there's not as many behaviors like what I had seen at this this place.
Can you share some of the actual behaviors?
Yeah. So there was kicking, hitting, pushing, biting, hair pulling. I fortunately did not have to worry about that, which is great. I always said that, so that was one benefit. So if there were homes where there were individuals who did have that tendency, I never worried about going into those. But you could see a lot more than that. Like there were some of the things that like I saw in those settings were some things I would have never expected to see, and I don't know how to properly even say it, but it was some of the most like intense moments that I've ever seen. And so the people who work in these settings are truly unbeliable. Like the fact that they do and really
empathy and the understanding and the patience.
Yeah.
How, like, what's your, we obviously know it's not the kids, it's not the autism's fault. It's not the human's fault.
Mm-hmm.
How do you wrap your head around that? Like, to help you cultivate more patience and more understanding and to stick it out and not walk away, and where do you start with that?
So I wanted to walk away. Honestly, after the internship, I did that for 3 months, and then I went to the adult program in a full-time role.
At a group home?
Yeah. So in a day program, but within the same agency, basically.
Okay.
And so I worked in the adult program for 6 months, and I said to my parents, I was like, I don't know if I would ever go back to the children's program. But then I was reached out to by my old boss in that internship, and he's like, hey, do you want to come back as the case management supervisor? And so 6 months into my role with the adults, I ended up going right back to the children's program.
What helped? Like, what made you go back?
Well, I think 2 things. One, I knew it was going to be an amazing learning experience, no matter what. And then 2, just being offered a role like as a supervisor 6 months after, like, you know, going into an adult program. It was a promotion, and I knew that it could probably open up doors in the future for me.
Now, when you came back, did you walk into, for lack of a better term, a dumpster fire, or like it's just like, why did they pick me? Or like, did you feel underqualified, or because of that whole 6 month thing?
Yeah.
Like, you weren't, you're still fresh out.
Yeah, I definitely felt underqualified. I think actually, unfortunately, like up until the very end, right before I left, I felt underqualified, and I ended up staying there for like 2.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so in total, it was close to like 3, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, I was in that role for 2.5 years. I stuck it out through COVID, and honestly, some of the hardest times that I've ever gone through, in terms of like my mental health and just with COVID, but also we were short staff. And
now within 3 years, or like, did you ever want to walk away then? It's just like
yeah. I did. I wanted to walk away, but even though it was some of the hardest times, I loved working with the individuals in the homes. Like I still had a huge passion for them.
When you say kids, what are the age ranges?
Yeah, so it's anywhere from 10 years old to the day before their 22nd birthday in like a children's residential setting.
Okay.
So, yeah, and one of the reasons why I felt underqualified was when I was in my internship, I was observing one of the case managers, and she was older than me, and then I go 6 months later, I'm now her boss, without having any experiences of being like a
huge
supervisor.
imposter syndrome.
Yeah, and so that was an interesting dynamic for me to kind of work through.
And sometimes it's all in our head. Like, how was it received on her end?
I think she was okay with it, but I think looking back, like I wish I was where I was at now, if I like in terms of what I know now and how to work with people, because I think I would have done a lot of things differently when I was in that role. But I think I was also undiagnosed with ADHD. I didn't know I had ADHD up until probably close.
Were things falling through the cracks, or what do you like? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was closing my office door. I couldn't focus at all. Like things were piling up.
Sure.
So I was really falling behind, and I knew it was getting to be an issue. Okay. And I also had a lot of things going on personally, and my mental health just wasn't good. So I realized, and I thought I had ADHD for a while, but I wasn't 100% sure.
Sure.
So finally, though, I went and got tested and everything, and I do have ADHD. And since then, actually, like a week after I was diagnosed, like one of the supervisors there came up to me and she's like, I don't know what's going on, but like you're like really doing like really well now. Like what's up? And I didn't tell anyone.
Yeah.
At that job, I didn't tell anyone, and I kept it very, very hush. So people just started like seeing improvements from me, and that's when I started to have like a little more confidence.
You're getting control back.
Yeah. And it was still a struggle because we were short staff and just burnt out. I mean,
Sure.
with COVID and like when people were working from home, I was going in every single day.
That's what a supervisor does.
Yeah. Well, everyone in that setting had to go in. Like it was because
people live there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's wild.
So,
what advice would you give to people that come across people with autism? I'm sure I think the easy answer is to treat them like a human being. But is there anything else like that you would share?
Yeah. So I think there's a human being. I mean, absolutely. Like, I think people forget that. So there's individuals with disabilities who aren't able to verbally communicate. And I've worked with many throughout my time at that place, but also in the current work that I'm doing. And people forget that like they're still human, and like you could talk to them and they will communicate in different ways.
Sure.
So it might not be like a interaction like how we're having, but they might communicate by their smile, by their body language. They also might use a communication device. So it's kind of taking the time to get to know them and actually understand that, like, the more you get to know people, you'll understand how they communicate. It might not be the same.
That's the huge thing, is taking the time, because when we meet strangers on the street, we're probably trying to head somewhere. We don't really have the time. Do people with those, those, for lack of a better term, but like disabilities, do they have, because I've seen this in media, just like an introduction card into what they might be going through?
Not always.
Okay.
I mean, I think the people that work with them are able to kind of provide that introduction card in a way. So like in the work I do now, I am always trying to, like, if someone new is coming into a setting, I will kind of be like, hey, just want you to know, like, this is what I know about this person, and try and guide them. But ultimately, like, I want them to have a chance to also
Do it for themselves.
Yeah, do it for themselves. And it takes patience. It takes, just listening skills, which I think can be difficult sometimes for people.
Yeah.
But truly, like, taking the time to get to know people is super vital, especially working with individuals with disabilities.
Just another reason to slow down and take
Yeah.
your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in your current role, you said recreation program manager?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of recreational things are we doing?
Yeah, so I actually just had a crazy summer, a crazy but great summer. So I, during the summer, oversee about 7 to 8 different day camps in the Chicago area, but specifically our inclusion program.
Okay.
So we are an organization, and it's called Keshet.
How do you spell that?
Keshet.
Oh.
And so
What is that? What is that, an acronym for something, or?
No, it's a Jewish organization that provides many.
Is that a Hebrew word, or what is?
That's a great question. I don't know. I feel like I should know that, but I don't. So I can get back to you on that one.
No worries.
But people are going to see this from work, and
There goes my curiosity, getting us into trouble.
No, but Keshet provides a lot of amazing opportunities for people with disabilities. So they have group homes for adults. They have a school, high school and elementary school. They have vocational programs. But during the summer, we partner with local day camps, basically, in the area.
So inclusion meaning they're included in everyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like a camper who just needs a little extra support, and we might help we might provide a counselor, a one-on-one counselor, and that camper who might not be able to go to camp because if they don't have support, they might have behaviors, or they might just really struggle. We provide support for them so that they can be integrated in a group of kids their own age at day camp, and really just have an amazing experience.
I remember
summer.
actually things like that in summer camp. Yeah, there would be. I guess I never put 2 and 2 together, but that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
Can you share which day camps, but like what areas of Chicago?
Yeah. So we partner with a few different organizations. So we have some that are in Old Town at Walter Payton High School. Nice. We have one that's at Northside, Northside College Prep.
Oh.
We have a camp that's in there, and then there's one in Evanston,
nice.
Lake Zurich, Northbrook, and what else? There's definitely more.
Sure.
Rogers Park and Skokie.
Nice.
And we also have our own camps too, that it's more so just individuals with disabilities.
Yeah.
But we still provide counselors, and for the one that we do on our own, it's mostly it's individuals who might need a little more support.
Sure.
Or it might be just because they're older than like the regular day camp age range, and the ones that we're in, the day camps that we're in, are currently about anywhere from like 3 years old to, I would say, seventh grade.
Like 13.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of growth for that group, for the company, what do you feel like is the bottleneck? Is it the number of counselors? Are people saying no to these asks? Like, are day camps saying no, or what's the bottleneck?
In terms of like day camp saying no, in terms of like,
if you're trying to include a member.
Yeah. So I would say, so basically anyone who is asking for support. So like now the day camps have on their application for when parents are filling out an application, like they could select that they want their camper to have a little more support. So like now.
So you're not coming with the person with the disability. You're coming with the support.
Yeah. We're coming with the support.
Oh.
Yep. Yeah.
I thought it was like a 2-and-2 package.
No. So sometimes it could be.
Oh. Yeah.
But no, mostly, and it kind of goes. In a way, it's both because we also a lot of the individuals who do camp are also doing our year-round rec program. So like when I'm not in summer camp, I'm running after-school sports programs, art programs on the weekend, during the week, and so we have a lot of crossover. So some of them go to both.
Are there certain programs that you didn't think would work that actually do work?
Yeah, there's a few. Actually, this past year I brought pickleball to.
I haven't tried pickleball yet.
Really? It's
Jordan's
so
brother
fun.
Jake was like trying to get me into it.
Really?
Yeah.
You should definitely try. I'm not amazing at it. But that was. I'm trying to think of like new ideas always, and like I think fortunately like I have. A good thing about me and also a bad thing is that I come up with so many ideas. I'm always thinking of new business ideas.
Need a journal. Need to write it down.
Oh, I do. I've too many ideas. And so sometimes that's why it's bad is because I really need to focus on the things that I have going on now. But I can get distracted but I'm still writing all the other ideas down. But pickleball was one that I don't know. I wasn't sure if people would be interested in it. I knew that like outside, it's the craze right now.
Yeah.
And I actually, before this, had never played.
Okay.
I just like, you know what? Let's do pickleball. And we did it. And it was an amazing program. Like people loved it. And hopefully this year we're going to even do it even bigger.
Yeah.
But it was really cool because we were out in the community. We partnered with a local pickleball like club or place basically, and we're in the community. There were other people around seeing us play, and like people kept coming up to us saying like, "This is so cool! Like we love that you guys are in the community doing this." So that was really cool. And then I don't know. I'm trying to bring more art programs to the program. But what I envision is a lot different, I think, than what we currently have going on.
So there's room for growth.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of room for growth.
How are these individuals expressing their personalities? And when you find that out, I guess that helps you tailor your recreation programs.
Yeah. They will let us know. Like they a lot of our participants, like, if they like our activities, they'll be like, Drew, I really like pickleball. I'm having a great time. Or they'll be like, Drew, I hate this. Like I'm sitting on the side and I'm like, can you at least try to hit it over the net like 2 times for me? And then if we do that, you could sit out.
Sure.
Like I want you to just give a little effort. And I encourage them. And if they're not gonna, like, we don't ever like force them to, obviously.
Yeah.
But trying to encourage. And there's people who are not gonna like programs, but their parents definitely want them to be there and like socializing with others. So if they're not participating, to us that's okay. Like we at least we're giving them an opportunity to socialize and meet people.
That's what's tough about, I guess, trying to help people of any kind. Is all you can do is provide the opportunity.
Yep.
Yep. And initially, when you don't understand that, it's like it's frustrating when the people that you're trying to help don't help themselves.
Yeah.
And then when you think about people with disabilities, it's like, is it really their fault, or like what else can we do for them?
Yeah. And I don't ever think it's their fault. Like I think there's times where no matter if you have a disability or not, you might do something that might be a negative thing. But I think there's always room to like grow and learn from those experiences.
Yeah.
But I think also coming from when I was in a residential setting to where I'm at now, it's a whole different ballgame. Like I now know how to work through like a lot of behaviors that I think most people in the current setting that I'm working at, they might not know that those behaviors that I saw in the past are even out there. Like they might not know.
Wow.
So having that knowledge coming into this.
What if that were to happen?
So we've been trained basically on how to properly like de-escalate.
Yeah. Well, what if they were to witness those behaviors?
Yeah, and it definitely has happened, not to the intensity, but there still are behaviors throughout the day. And just like calmly as like the staff members have to like calmly work through it and try our best.
No.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh, it's still going. Let's pause for a second.
Okay, perfect.
But what I wanted to move on to was how have you dealt with these individuals that maybe didn't feel good enough to do maybe some of the recreational programs you provided?
Yeah. I think that's an amazing question because I think people sometimes don't have the. I don't want to say don't have. I think people don't always understand that success looks different for everyone. So one of the things that I love the most about my job and what I get to experience, whether it's at camp or during the year in any of our programs, is that someone might come to it without any skills in like a sport like pickleball, or someone at camp might not want to go swimming, and they might not get in the pool for the full summer up until the very last day. Like they might dip their toes in from like maybe they went the first 4 weeks of no pool but on the side to slowly building up to dipping their toe in to maybe going in with just their feet. And then actually by the last week or last day of camp, like they might fully be in swimming around with their friends. And to me, that's huge. Like that's success. And others might see it as like, well, they weren't in the pool the entire summer. But to me, I'm like, well, everyone takes their own time, and some people aren't always comfortable doing certain things. And so you have to provide an opportunity for them to feel comfortable in this, whatever environment they're in.
Yeah.
So it takes patience. It takes understanding. But it also takes a lot of encouragement and continuing to encourage and not getting distracted and like.
Do you ever throw in the towel?
No, I think at least in my current role, I don't feel like I do. I think especially in the role, so I oversee all of our day camps pretty much. And so I don't get to be at one camp during the day. I'm going through like 3 different camps. I'm checking in. So like I have site directors who are like the leaders and helping the counselors. So when I come in, I think people also see me in a different light. Like I think I wouldn't say I'm intimidating or
right, but
that's how
that
people
kinda
actually
comes with it.
Yeah.
So what have you done to kind of like bring down the elusiveness of Drew?
Yeah. Well, that's I'm always trying to bring that down. But I think it's just me taking the time to actually talk to every counselor and like them get to know me and like realize that like, oh, Drew's not scary.
So intimidation from site directors as well as the members, or just the members?
No, just like the counselors. I would say like they
'cause they haven't had the time.
Yeah. Like the site directors, I work with them prior to camp, like coaching them, training, and I'm constantly communicating with them, so they get to like know the real me.
Yeah.
I make a lot of jokes. I feel like I'm one of the, what I like to think is at least one of the most calm people that in this setting. Like there might be behaviors, but I try and come with a calm presence. And I think people see that. So, but at the same time, if you don't know me, if I'm just coming into a camp and they're not in our year-round programs, they don't always get to see me like playing around in sports. Like if I'm doing pickleball or we have basketball program or art, like I'm trying to actually participate with them, and like I'm joking around.
I was gonna ask, but it sounds like you have the best of both worlds. From like you have this bird's eye view of curating things, and you're still within the day-to-day minutia
Yeah.
of participation. I was gonna ask, like, how hard is it to be, or does it do you wish to still be in the day-to-day? But it sounds like you are.
Yeah. It's actually it's really difficult because I love being in the day to day. Like I
Okay.
love the fact that I get to go to day camps and be out in the sun and like when I'm at camps I'm not participating in the games, but I get to like walk around and have fun. I get to see kids having like a blast and just having an amazing summer. During the year when I'm doing pickleball and all those things, like I want to be in those programs. I get like an instructor to lead them, so I'm not actually the one leading it unless like the instructor's sick or something. But I still am trying to participate in them.
Yeah.
And it's hard though because I get distracted, and so if I'm doing work or I have work to do, but I also want to check in and play a little basketball, I'm going back to my office to like focus. That can be a whole challenge in itself. So
Well, basketball's the reward.
right, exactly. But no, it's nice that I get to have fun in my job and also get to be creative. Like that's
Yeah.
what I love.
Anything else you want to share about being the program manager, the recreational program manager?
No,
I guess like when people come to apply, do you like interviews or anything?
Yeah. Well, I interview for camp, like camp counselors, and then during the year we have some opportunities. But no, I mean, if people reach out, I will say we have either volunteering opportunities. We're always looking for volunteers in that world.
Who's the ideal candidate?
Yeah, I would say we have people who are sixth graders to high school to college.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a huge kind of.
I think everyone has something to offer.
Yeah. And it's people who are either just getting into this world or like intrigued by it, who want to not only have fun, but also they're looking for like what are their passions in life.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to see really like at the beginning stages of like a volunteer who might be 6 or like 6th grade or something like that, get to see their passion grow and like their comfortability. And so we have like a baseball program where on Sundays in the fall and spring, we play baseball. We have probably 35 individuals who come, and then we also get a lot of volunteers for that program. And basically we just play baseball together. So volunteers just run the bases, go out in the field, bat with them if they need help. And so that is something where we get a whole range, like people who did camp with us, for like counselors who just want to be there and have fun and see others that they don't always get to see, and then we have kids who are really just getting into it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you do anything with funding? I'm guessing you guys are nonprofit.
Yeah, that's a nonprofit. Yep.
Have you heard, like, is it difficult to obtain funding for this demographic?
Yeah, no. So there's a lot of grants that we can get. I think the organization does an amazing job of getting those grants.
Yeah.
The difficult part is some of those grants you can only have for 3 years, and then you have to take like essentially a year break.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so there's some, not all, but basically because of that, then you have to look for more funding, and that could be a challenge. And especially being that Keshet is it's a Jewish organization, and you don't have to be Jewish at all to be involved with it. There's individuals who like that I work with who aren't Jewish.
Oh, okay.
I'm not religious really, and so, but we do an amazing job of working with people with disabilities. So, but because it's known as a religious organization, despite it not necessarily like that's not what it's all about.
Right.
But we always like the Jewish values essentially, which I would say is really intertwined with just values as a person, which is like respect. Like
Universal things.
Yeah, exactly. But because of it being like a Jewish organization, sometimes getting funding can be difficult from other sources of funding
So
because
it's
of
like
the
a
religion.
double-edged sword.
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So I don't have too much to do with the funding in
Yeah.
that, but in my role, like I get to hear about it, especially because I'm trying to plan new ideas for the fall programs
Yeah.
for during the year, and that when I'm planning, I have to think about the budget. So
I think it's pretty easy to point where your sense of fulfillment is coming from. But, some people might complain about not making enough money. Some people might complain about their coworkers or their boss or the work that they do. Is there any part of this sense of fulfillment that's lacking for you? Because it doesn't seem like it, but if in an ideal world, what else would you add to it?
So I would love to have more money, but ultimately, like I do what I do. Like I'm in this role because I truly love it. Like it's something I'm so passionate about. And it's a full circle moment for me, like even working at where I work, because I grew up, like I was a counselor for them for 4 summers, and I was a site director at camp for them, and then was away, and then they reached out to me to come back, and now I've been in this role for 2 years. But when I went to school for social work, I don't think I realized it in the beginning, but I think as I kept going in school, I realized that this was not the field for money. There's definitely...
I'm hearing there's a lot of opportunity for private practice, though.
There are tons of opportunities, I think, for private practice, and there actually are opportunities still to earn money for social work, but if you're looking for money, you don't go into social work for money. You just don't. But there's opportunities.
Like in an ideal world, you want to do good and be able to take care of yourself and your own.
Yeah.
It's not too much to ask for.
No. I would. Right. Exactly. It'd be nice. But I'm thankful though. Like I've been able to grow. When I was in the first setting that I was at right out of college to where I'm at now, like I've continued to grow, and there's so many opportunities to continue to do that in this field. So I'm fortunate enough to be
a good, healthy dose of like a challenge. I think is also for me a part of where that fulfillment comes from, is like this sense of growth, this sense of like you're at the edge of like being comfortable and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So that being said, it might be a good segue to go into your own project, Be Creative Souls. And if you were to scroll to the very bottom, I get the sense that Be Creative Souls is more about shoes.
Yeah.
Like souls, like SOLES instead of SOULS.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So unfortunately the domain that I really wanted was taken, so I had to think of something else. So basically, Creative Soul. So the business is called Creative Souls.
Okay.
But creativesouls.com, it's quite a bit of money to
originally
purchase.
SOULS or SOLES?
Originally it was SOLES.
Okay.
But that was actually before I even like registered as business. That was like the first. So I'll kind of take it a few steps back.
Oh, you didn't realize it was taken.
So
Sorry,
no,
I'll stop cutting you off. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. No, so I was in a class at U of I. It was actually a social work class, but it was social entrepreneurship.
Oh.
In that class, we had to come up with an idea that could make a positive impact for society.
Huh.
And so immediately, like even before this class, I had ideas of businesses that I wanted, that I don't know if I ever thought I would ever create, but I had just a list. And specifically working with people with disabilities, it like was related to that. And so in this class, I'm like, well, I have a couple ideas. I went back and forth, but we had to pick one that we were going to work on for the semester. And the teacher who's amazing and I still talk to this day, her name's Carol, and she loved the idea of Creative Souls. And when I came up with it, it was hand painting on canvas shoes, but individuals with disabilities, hand painting on the shoes. So in that class, I came up with the initial idea, and specifically shoes. So it was SOLES. But and this I'm jumping quite a bit in the story, but eventually I would learn that I had a lot of passion for this and that I wanted to make it an actual business. And so when I was thinking about this and way into the future, if I kept it as SOLES, I'm kind of stuck with shoes. Not necessarily, but it was a play on word, like souls, shoes, but also people. So I decided that I was going to switch from SOLES to SOULS.
I see.
And to really focus on the people.
The human.
But also there's still that, in a way, you can think about souls. So it's shoes, but it opens the door for me to do a lot more than shoes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to take us back to the very beginning, how did you meet the individuals that were part of this project, and how is it gathering resources, the paint, the shoes, and all that stuff?
Yeah, so in the classroom, I came up with the rough draft idea. Then towards the end of that class, I ended up reaching out to an organization where two of my brothers actually volunteered at. So I have 3 older brothers. They all went to U of I. Actually, my whole family did. There was no choice. I had to go to U of I. My mom, dad, my uncles, my grandma. So U of I was the only option. But 2 of my brothers went there and volunteered at a local organization called DSC, and it was in Champaign, and it was sort of like where I work at now in a way. But there were individuals with disabilities there, and I reached out just asking if any have any interest in creating art on shoes the goal was that I would sell, and then they would earn money for it. And immediately they said yes. But then the class ended, and so then I had a choice of like, do I really want to do this, or,
Your social entrepreneurship class.
Yeah. And so I would say actually all of the people in that class, like no one stuck with their idea. Like it was just like during the class,
Damn.
like they just did the class,
right.
and yeah. It wasn't.
How deep with the concepts within the class go into entrepreneurship?
So there was actually 2 things that you could do with your idea. So one was you could create an idea as in like a little project, or you could kind of focus on making it more of like a business idea. I chose to go into more detail and like do the business route, because I was like, I actually think this might be a really cool idea to maybe continue in the future. So I wanted to go like kind of all out. And what was your question again?
Well, what concepts did they touch on? Are there some concepts or takeaways that still stuck with you or helped you get to the next level from that class?
Yeah. So I think it was great because it helped me think through the class helped me think through like how to bring an idea to a little bigger than an idea. So it gave me the steps to like, okay, how do I even start like in general with an idea? Like, what's the purpose of my idea? So we went through like, what's the mission? What's the goal? Who are we working with? Why are we doing this? And then possible like partners that you could work with. And I think the biggest thing that this class taught me was that in order to make things happen, sometimes you have to be able to network and communicate with others. So me reaching out to an organization in that class, I don't think anyone else, I could be wrong, but I don't remember anyone else actually doing that. And I think I was just so like intrigued and like wanting to get to know that, like, is this a possibility? Like, would people even be interested in it?
Did you try to do research on if there was a similar group doing that already?
In terms of like art and
with disability and art and
so there actually was, and still there are actually now there's more than ever. But there's a business, or actually I think it's a nonprofit called We Are Lions. They I think actually the person who created it, I have mutual friends with him. I've never met this guy. I've actually met his dad randomly at a fair that I was presenting Creative Souls to. So basically, We Are Lions. It's individuals creating art that goes on to apparel, but it's not shoes. So I did a ton of research back then about what's out there. Is there anything with shoes? And I couldn't find a single thing with individuals with disabilities creating art with shoes.
Okay.
So that was like my unique
What if
niche.
there was, though? Would that have stopped you?
Would it upset me?
Stopped you.
Oh, stop me.
From continuing.
I don't think it would have stopped me from continuing. I don't think I would have done shoes, though. I think I would have, honestly, I think I would have thought of something else that was different from what other people are doing still.
Yeah.
I have no clue what that would have been. But I didn't want to, I wanted to do something that was unique and that wasn't out there that could really intrigue people, and really try and come up with a new idea. So
Are there other mediums within art that you're looking to explore for your group?
Like back then or right now?
Right now, like what if they did ceramics?
Yeah. So I think that's all. Like I'm exploring a lot of actually different things.
Yeah.
Creative Souls in general right now. There's, and this is this is a challenge for me, but there's a lot of things that I could do with Creative Souls. There's like a lot of things I'm already doing.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to like stick with what I originally sought out to do. But I'm always also thinking of new ideas because you always have to grow and be creative.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that would be really cool though.
What are some of the mediums that you work with at the moment?
Yeah. So, well, kind of, I'll give you an idea of what I was doing and then what I'm currently doing. And it's kind of like a journey in a way. So I realized pretty quickly I went abroad right after that class, the semester. So summer happened. Then I went abroad, in the fall. And so that idea kind of was still in the back of my head. So when I got back from being abroad, I was like, I don't know. I feel like that project like was something I was really passionate about. I think I want to continue. So I then reached back out to that organization I was working with, or like that I initially talked to, DSC, and said, do you have like 5 to 10 individuals who want to hand paint? So we hand painted shoes. I went to their setting and brought like canvas shoes. I think like 30 pairs. I brought paint that I purchased. I brought like every material that I think like, I don't know if they're going to use it, but I'm just going to bring it. And also, mind you, like I'm not an artist in terms of like paint. Like I don't know how to draw or paint. So like at that time, I didn't know what I was doing. And I was like, just go wild, like whatever you want to create. And I realized pretty quickly, like individuals, it could take them 5 minutes to do like 5 pairs. Or there were individuals who 3 hours later were still on the one side of the shoe, or like only one pair in 3 hours. So there was a huge difference on that hand painted
production.
Yeah. And so I eventually got the 30 pairs done. Then I went to, I think a semester later, I went to some local art fairs, and in those art fairs, like people were interested in the shoes. Like I could tell people were intrigued by it, but I think one of the problems I ran into was like someone liked a design in size 5, but the design that the artist created it on, that was only on size 8. And they're like, well, can they just replicate it? And I'm like,
the 101.
Yeah, I'm like, this is truly unique to itself.
Wow.
I'm like, I could ask them to try to replicate it. I'm like, but I'm like, honestly, there's no way to do that. And so I realized quickly, like, this wasn't going to necessarily work. And I was stuck with like probably, I think I still have 20 pairs of the initial batch. And not to say the art wasn't good. I just don't think it was the right fit for people to want to wear with
Yeah.
their
They
daily
want
out.
to support, but in what way? What other ways, right?
Right. So then time went on. That was my senior year, graduated. During the summer, I was still thinking about Creative Souls. And then I came back from my master's. And in the first week of school, I was searching entrepreneurship at U of I. And I said, like, is there any pitching events or anything like that? I kept searching for things like that. I found one that was like a big pitching event. I didn't realize how big it was. And it was like the day before I reached out. Before the event.
The event, okay.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know if you have any availability. And they're like, you're in luck. They got back to me, fortunately, like immediately, and were like, you're in luck. Someone just dropped out. We were full, but we have a spot. You can be that spot. And they're like, can you send me your pitch deck and some other things? I'm like, I had to search. I'm like, what's a pitch deck? And I'm like, so that night I told them, like, yeah, I'll send it right away. Like by the end of the night or whatever. And so I was up, I think, all night. I'm like, I have to create a whole pitch.
Now you're doing it for you, not for a project,
right?
Or not for a school, or
yeah. And actually, before I graduated my senior year, I was in an internship, and this is actually a vital step of like Creative Souls and what it came to be. But I was in the internship. It had nothing to do with disabilities. But my supervisor there asked me, what do you want to do this semester? And I was like, well, really, if I'm being honest, I would love to work on a project that I've been working on, like that I've been thinking about a ton. And so I described what Creative Souls was, and he's like, you're doing it. He's like, immediately, he's like, that's what you're doing this semester, even though it had nothing to do with like that organization.
Yeah.
So that's when I started going on to like to more art fairs. I built a website on Squarespace. It was not a great website. It was also like, just like, it was very basic, and I didn't know a lot. And also I realized after that Squarespace was not the best for me. Great for artists if you're showing a portfolio, but for an e-commerce business, it wasn't the right place.
Sure. So
in that internship, though, towards the end, I think on the last week of it, we sat down and we were debriefing, and he's like, so you're graduating. I know you're coming back, but he's like, what do you want to do with Creative Souls? And he's like how can you continue to grow it? So I was thinking, like, am I going to be a nonprofit or am I going to be a business? How am I going to actually scale this, especially if it's hand painting on shoes with one-offs? I'm like, I don't think I can. I don't know. So I jokingly said, I wish there was a printer that could print designs onto shoes. And I just jokingly said that. So he, and his name was is Erez. He searched on Google printers that print onto shoes. And immediately things popped up. And we were both like, this is an actual thing. Like, you could print onto shoes, and the caveat of it was that these printers are expensive.
Okay.
yeah, like the one I think we saw right away was like $25,000. And I'm this college student and going into social work or like wrapping up social work degree, and I'm like, how am I ever gonna afford that? Yeah. But so that was kind of where we ended that year. Then I came back from my master's and did I did the pitching event. The day after, I basically reached out, and two or three MBA students came up to me after the pitch, and they were like, we love what you're trying to do, and we'd love to help you. Like, this, make a business plan or whatever you're thinking, like, we want to help you. And prior to this, when I saw the whole printer thing, I actually reached out to the printer company, and they just so happened to have an office right near, is like in Hoffman Estates.
Oh, what?
So I got a tour and like a demo of the printer prior to the pitching event. And so I brought like a Converse to the place, and they printed one of my designs on the shoe. Oh. So I had a design, I had the shoes, and I'm like, okay, this is...
You had a prototype.
I had a prototype. And so when I went into the pitching event, I said, this is what I've been doing, and this is my vision for what I know I could create if I had the funding, if I had the right resources and people involved. And the idea with the printer is that takes it from no longer hand painting on shoes. I could have people create art on a piece of paper. They could draw with color pencil, markers, whatever they want, and at their own pace, at home, in organizations, wherever they want. And all they have to do is take a picture, and hopefully high quality, and send it to me. And I'm able to take that, and then with that printer, print it directly onto shoes. But it's a direct-to-garment printer.
Yeah.
So it allows me to print on shoes, shirts, apparel. So I can do a lot more than just shoes. But that was like the thought. So I pitched it. Business students were interested. That whole year basically created a whole...
You essentially have created a print-on-demand service, but with the niche of artists that have disabilities.
Yeah. Yep. Wow. Yeah.
That's amazing. I didn't think of it like that.
Basically, yeah. No, you captured that really well. Like people, I'm impressed by how you phrase that, because I think sometimes I also struggle with like how to even talk about my business, because there's so many different factors to it.
Yeah.
That's the main idea.
Okay.
I ultimately want to, and what I say is like it's individuals with disabilities creating apparel designs.
Yeah.
But it's print on demand, and on the flip side, and I think what your original question was, like what other methods I think you can go into, so or things you can do.
What other mediums? Like what if someone created like a song or whatever? You know, it can be audio, visual, tactile, whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think I'm always trying to explore different ideas. I haven't thought about like visual, like audio or anything like that. I think
ceramics would be cool.
I think that would.
I think it's
really
therapeutic
cool
for them, and then I think it'd be cool if someone saw it at an art fair and just like, that is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's not like one size fits all.
Right.
Like it might be one size fits all. It's like, that is a cool piece on my mantle, on my tabletop.
Yeah. But so I work with artists with disabilities, but I also, the goal of Creative Souls, and so I made it a business. I chose to make it a business because ultimately, like, I want to provide employment opportunities for individuals with disabilities. Unfortunately, there's a huge lack of opportunities for people with disabilities, and I think I don't know the right statistics at this moment, but I think over 75%, I could be butchering this, but I think there's a huge number of people with disabilities who like millions who aren't able to get a job solely because of their disability. So I want to create a business that people take seriously and don't also support it just because it's people with disabilities. I want the designs to like speak for themselves. Yeah. And it doesn't matter that the person has a disability. Like the art is great, and it just so happens that someone has a disability. On the other side is like, I want to provide an opportunity, not just with artists, but in all areas of the business. So, like my goal,
back end, and logistics.
So like fulfillment, and I fortunately was able to actually start doing that in the past few months of having people come and actually help with like folding.
Okay. So it's not 100% print on. When I think of, because I have print on demand too. Mm-hmm. But I have really minimal say or like quality control. Yeah. You might be able to pick the type of garment, but I 100% don't know what it is until they actually print on it and ship it out. Yep. And the quality of the print, I don't know what the quality of the print is until they ship it out. Yep. So it sounds like it's somewhat in-house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's in-house. And that's, I think, also what separates me from other like apparel brands
Yeah.
that are creating apparel designs or anything with
I
individuals
mean,
with
I don't have to
disabilities.
hold inventory.
Right.
I don't make a lot on my margins, but at the same time, I don't have any control as
Yeah.
far as the quality.
Yeah. And so looking back, I don't know 100%. I go back and forth with, like, would I have got the printer, or
Wait,
would
so
I?
you did get the printer?
So ooh, I did.
You did get the printer.
I did get the printer. In my master's program, I was ADHD. I jump around a lot, so as you
Me
can see,
too.
yeah. So I did get the printer, which is amazing. It's so. I made the business plan with the business students.
Okay.
From there, I decided with them, I said my intention is to launch like a Kickstarter campaign.
Okay.
So in my master's program towards the end, I launched a Kickstarter campaign. The goal was to raise $50,000 in 30 days. I created the campaign by myself. I didn't do any research of like how to create like a successful campaign. I didn't know much, but I just did it. And when I was when I had to choose like what the goal was, I had to put a limit of like, okay, I need to buy this $25,000 printer, but on top of it, I also need inventory because if I have the printer, I'm doing the printing.
That's good foresight.
Yeah, but I also have to be able to ship everything to people who are backing the project. So I'm like, originally I was going to do 15,000.
Oh, wow.
And then I was like, I got to do 50 to be able to afford everything.
15 wouldn't have gotten you the printer. You would have
No.
funded the cost by yourself then?
No, my goal was, so when I was deciding, I'm like, well, maybe if I do 15, if I get to 15, people might want to,
Oh,
I might make more. Or
Okay.
if I show proof that like people support this and want to even help
Sure.
in the slightest, maybe I can get some other funding some way.
Sure.
Whatever it was going to take, I knew kind of like I was going to do whatever to make it happen. So in the 30 days, I went on NBC Chicago, like on,
Oh, wow.
I think it was right at like prime time, like 5 o'clock news or I don't know, something like that. But I was on NBC.
How did that happen though?
I was connected with a reporter who I basically said, this is what I do. I'm like, I would love to be on NBC.
So you cold emailed or cold called?
I added them on Facebook.
Added NBC on Facebook.
I added the reporter.
The reporter.
But this reporter knew mutual people that I knew.
Okay.
As in, like, I think one of my teachers.
That helps.
From like I went to Stevenson High School, if you're familiar.
Yeah. I went to Fremd.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, definitely familiar. And this teacher, I think, I don't know if they reached out to the reporter as well, but they liked the idea. And this was like, I think this was like 5 days into the Kickstarter. I'm like, I need something big to happen to be able to like make this actually come true. So yeah, I went on NBC. I then like radio stations were talking about it. So it started getting the word out a lot. I didn't make the goal, the 50,000.
Okay.
I ended up raising 15,000.
Okay.
But to me that was still a huge win. But on Kickstarter, if you don't meet your goal of whatever you wanted to reach, which was 50,000, you actually don't keep any of the money. It goes right back to the backers.
Bruh.
Yeah. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, I probably should have done more research originally on like platforms and what would have made more sense for me.
Yeah.
But, I did right after the Kickstarter. I was like, well, I just raised 15,000. That I'm not gonna get any of it, but to me that was huge. Like
proof.
I went from literally nothing. Like I no one really knew about Crave Souls prior to then, or maybe if they did, it was very little. To all of a sudden, I had like 300 people backing this.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's 300, but a lot of people backing. So I created a new campaign on a thing called You Caring. And You Caring actually was like right after I ended my campaign on that, it was bought by GoFundMe. But You Caring was focused on like creative projects
Okay.
for social good. And you actually get to keep the whatever you raise, no matter
Okay.
what. So I raised $10,000, a little over 10,000 on that platform. And the great thing about that was that people weren't backing it. Like they weren't giving money to get something out of it. Like they weren't sending money to get a shirt. Whereas
Right,
Kickstarter,
right.
like they're backing to actually get something like shoes
Sure.
or a shirt or whatever the award was. But You Caring, people are like donating the money because they truly just care about your mission or like what you're trying to
Okay.
do. So to me, raising a little over 10,000 without even
Wow.
needing to
Give something in
give
return.
something, I was so thankful for that opportunity, because I'm like, that is even more successful than 15,000, because I'd have to fulfill a ton of orders too. But that's 10,000, and so that doesn't
Wow.
reach the printer goal. But during that whole time, now my ex, but her dad is in like the venture capital world. He posted, I think, on LinkedIn, and this person who was a mutual connection with him had said he would like to get in contact with me. So this person named Devin he called me and he's like, I'm creating a fund to fund companies either supporting people with disabilities or run by someone with a disability. So I actually cross off both marks on that. He has I think his brother, or someone in his family, who has a disability, who is actually in a different state, a part of an organization called Camp Hill Sultane, and it's in Pennsylvania. They do a lot of amazing things, but they were starting a fund, an innovation fund to fund companies. And so they wanted Creative Souls to be the first company they were going to fund. And so after talking with Devin for many months, they ended up actually giving me the money to be able to purchase the printer.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I had over $25,000, purchased the printer, and then I had the 10,000 from that You Caring thing to purchase inventory. So I bought shoes. I was doing it on my parents' basement for many years at this point. So it was, I think, 3 or 4 years of that in my parents' basement. And then my goal was always to grow out of the basement, or at least be able to move it somewhere. And I moved it.
Now you got a location?
I do. Not just my own location. I moved it into my brother's warehouse. So
Okay.
moved it in there, and so basically all my brothers and actually my mom, we all own our own businesses.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And so one of my brothers, his name's Matthew. He owns a sock company called No Cold Feet. And it's like wedding and groomsmen gifts. But it's socks, and he mostly sells on Etsy. And it's with my sister-in-law too. They co-own it.
But what are some designs on the socks?
There's like stripes, polka dots.
Okay.
And then they actually have just created some unique, fun ones for like the holidays coming up. But they are crushing it on Etsy, and they have they have their own warehouse for this. And they I basically jokingly asked them, so when can I move my printer into your warehouse and out of our parents' basement? Because I moved downtown in Lincoln Park, and I was like, going from Lincoln Park to work to then Buffalo Grove, and it was a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I need to move it somewhere, but also preferably out of their basement.
How big is it?
The printer?
Yeah.
It's 250 pounds. It's probably the size of the it's probably this.
This table?
Yeah. Bigger than. It's probably a little wider than this table, but it's also from here probably up to here, maybe even a little bigger. But we had to get it down into the basement and stairs. It was crazy to get it down. Like I was dreading the day that I would have
You
to bring
it
it
back
up.
up.
Yeah, and it was so rough. Like the mover, like I had to help the movers going down.
Sure.
And so, but I knew if I kept it in the basement, I would never make it any bigger than what I would like it,
Sure,
what
sure.
Creative Souls to be. I wanted to partner with organizations and bring people in to the environment and like teach them how to print. I wanted to create a space where individuals with disabilities could truly learn and grow, and like not just with printing, but maybe art, maybe helping with shipping, fulfillment. And they couldn't do that in my parents' basement.
Do individuals with, and I'm sure they do, with disabilities ever have like existential crises? Or like self-reflection of like identity?
Yeah, I definitely think so. It might look very different from what like we know it as.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've personally seen it, but I think so. I don't know. Yeah.
To close out, it's going to be a tough question, but earlier you said that you don't want whatever they make to be bought simply because it was made by someone with a disability. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Does that then take away from the brand of Creative Souls? Like how do we embrace it, and it's not like you're sweeping it under the rug, but it's a double-edged sword, I think.
Yeah, so it goes. So I don't want how do I phrase this? I want people to support people with disabilities. I want people to learn about individuals with disabilities.
Yeah.
My goal is to be able to create a space, and I think this is what I've done with Creative Souls, is create an opportunity for people to see like the artist stories and learn about them and see their art. I want to show that like individuals with disabilities can do anything if they're provided opportunities, and if people support. With that said, like Creative Souls is absolutely still very like I want people to know that we're working with people with disabilities, artists, and in all areas of the business. But at the end of the day, I would like people to purchase the art not just because they feel bad for someone with a disability. And I think that's why I wanted to make this a business, because I want people to realize like people can be extremely creative, talented, and I want them to see that artwork that someone with a disability created.
Yeah.
And I want people to be supportive of, the fact that they of their background. They're
doing the damn thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, but it's been a journey. I'm still going at it, and now I moved closer to my business and really just trying to keep.
Do you miss
growing.
the city at all?
I miss the city every day. I love the city. I love living where I live because my commute is like nothing now.
Yeah.
But I love the city.
What would you ever want Creative Souls to be in the city?
I would love it. I would love it to be in the city. I would love to have like my own shop or like a space where it's a retail but also a creative environment where like people can come in, like create the art and shop.
Reach out to Francis Almeida. He owns a coffee shop at Foster and Damon called Side Practice Coffee.
I think I've heard of that.
He's been on.
Maybe from your podcast. Yep.
He's been on. And there was a time where he opened his shop to the podcast. I didn't have a studio.
Really?
But the premise of the coffee shop is to display and put on other people's side practices.
That's
so
amazing.
You pop up and you sell whatever you want to sell. Baked goods, physical goods, whatever. And he just gives a platform for other people.
That's awesome.
So doesn't have to reach
out.
out. I would reach out to Francis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything else you'd like the listeners to know? I feel like we covered a lot of things today.
Yeah. There's so much I could still speak on. I think I could speak on for another 5 hours if I wanted to. Won't do that to you or any of the viewers, listeners. But we have a lot of amazing things happening the past couple years. I've really been focusing on custom printing for small businesses, nonprofits, and just like one-off orders. I also have my own app for printing and fulfillment. So like your store, if anyone has a store, you could connect to me to Creative Souls, and we could do the printing and fulfillment for people. But the goal, the past few years, I've been focusing on custom printing to kind of maintain it and still be able to do the business. And that's because of COVID. COVID shut down a lot of places, especially the people that I was partnering with for the artist. A lot of agencies like shut down their studios and have recently opened up, and like they're continuing to grow now. But I really want to take Creative Souls to the next level. And custom printing, it's amazing. I've been able to actually provide opportunities for people with disabilities to come in and help with the fulfillment side. But ultimately, like, I want it to be full circle where I'm able to help people in all areas of my business. And that to me is with artists. And so I'm now kind of taking a step back and really trying to focus on what I originally set out to do, which is creating art. Individuals with disabilities creating art that's printed onto shoes and apparel, and you know, continue to grow that. But the last thing I'll say is I can't go into too much details, but I have a lot of really exciting news to share in the incoming months. I won a contest from an extremely popular YouTuber. I can't say who yet. So you'll have to keep following Creative Souls for that. But I think this could potentially lead to a lot of really, really cool opportunities and really take Creative Souls to a level that I kind of always envisioned, but it's been a slow grind to get to where I think it could be, and still not there yet. So yeah,
that's amazing, Drew.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for reaching out.
Appreciate it.
It was you have quite the story.
Thank you.
And yeah, I don't know what else to say, but keep going. Where can people find you if you want to be found?
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, and I'm happy to be able to have an opportunity to speak about all this, my story and Creative Souls. But if you want to follow Creative Souls, it's Be Creative Souls, or at Be Creative Souls. So it's BE and then CREATIVE and then SOULS. Our website is becreativesouls.com. But if you're interested, my hobby on the outside is also just photography. So if you want to follow me at Drew Mac, Drew and then MAC photo, that's where you can see all my photography. And I'm going on an amazing trip starting tomorrow. And so there's going to be a lot of cool pictures that I'm going to be taking.
What kind of photos do you like taking?
Landscape and just like nature, like
specifically. Are you doing like a national park, or do you like night photography or like astrophotography?
Night photography, but also I'm doing national parks. I'm actually doing a 10-day solo road trip to Badlands, Yellowstone, and Grand Teton.
Nice. It's a solid trip.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So
that was Angel's Landing.
Oh, I have not been there. I want to go there so bad. But yes, I'm hoping to have some pictures like that. Hopefully after this trip.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, Drew, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Be well. Good luck. We'll be following.
Appreciate it.
And everyone else, thanks for listening.
Yep.
Thanks for putting up with our audio-visual stuff.
It
It'll be cut
happens.
out. But
I got it.
stay curious. Until next time.
Thanks. Keep being creative.